Tonight on Reporting Scotland, the Ebola nurse Pauline Cafferty is taken to hospital by ambulance under police escort. The Scottish Government bans the extraction of gas by burning underground coal seams. A warning that Brexit could cost Scotland between 30,000 and 80,000 jobs. A stricken oil rig is finally being loaded aboard a salvage vessel 2 months after running aground on the coast of Lewis.
Shut my door!
And Jack and Victor are back as Still Game returns to our screens after a break of 9 years. Good evening. The Scottish nurse Pauline Cafferty, who contracted the Ebola virus in West Africa, is back in hospital in Glasgow tonight. She was taken from her home in Cambuslang by ambulance with a police escort earlier today after becoming ill. Our reporter Aileen Clark is at Queen Elizabeth University Hospital tonight. Aileen, what's the latest?
Well, Pauline Cafferty is in a stable condition and she's undergoing investigations. And the Health Board have also told us that following a detailed assessment of her, they can provide reassurance that there is no risk to the public. She was brought here around 9:30 this morning by ambulance from her home and under police escort. She's in the care of the infectious diseases team here at the hospital. They will be carrying out all these tests. And it must be, though, of some concern to herself and disappointment to herself and her family that at this point in her recovery, she's found herself back in hospital once more. It's just 3 weeks since Pauline Cafferty emerged from a hearing in Edinburgh, officially cleared to go back to nursing.
The NMC disciplinary process has been very upsetting and stressful for Pauline. However, she's delighted that the panel has made the decision that she has no case to answer.
As she left that day, she must have been looking forward to continuing with her nursing career. But this morning, she was taken from her home in Cambuslang by ambulance under police escort to hospital in Glasgow. Neighbours expressed their concern and hope for a speedy recovery.
Well, I was shocked for she was getting on that well, you know. She was making progress, she was getting out and about and going to her work.
She's come through so much, and each time she gets out, she thinks she's on the road to recovery, then she gets hit with something else, and it's just a shame.
Unfortunately, she contracted this disease when she was trying to help others. We thought she'd turned the corner last time and she was okay.
Pauline Cafferty contracted Ebola after going out to nurse patients affected by the outbreak in Sierra Leone. On her return to the UK in December 2014, she herself became critically ill and complex arrangements were put in place to transport her to a specialist unit in London, where she stayed for a month. Last October, the virus re-emerged, causing meningitis. Once more, she was taken to London for specialist treatment. Then in February this year, another complication meant another readmission to the specialist unit there. In September, the hearing into what she had told health officials when she arrived back in the UK from Sierra Leone cleared her to go back to nursing. But this morning, she was taken back to hospital as a patient. She spoke a year ago of how she didn't really know how her health would hold up.
So it's taken me a good few months to recover from it. And that's the thing, you just don't know long-term wise either. Hopefully this is it, this is the end of it, but you just don't know.
Pauline has been back doing some work at the health centre in Blantyre, and local people today wished her well.
I think there will be a lot of concern for her and definitely a lot of sympathy. It's not something you want anybody to go through, especially someone who's actually trying their best to help people.
Oh, she's a good person, obviously, you know, the work she does, and I'm very sorry to hear it, you know. I hope she comes out it okay.
Now, of course, we should remember that in the last couple of years, Ms Cafferty's immune system has taken a right good battering. So, of course, it might be the case that as long as she is in a stable condition, the doctors here will want to get the results of all the tests they've been carrying out today before they reach a decision about whether she needs to go back to that specialist unit in London where she's been treated before, or whether they can adequately treat her this time here in Glasgow.
Aileen, many thanks for that. The Scottish Government is banning the controversial practice of underground coal gasification. The technique involves burning difficult-to-mine coal under the ground and capturing the gas it gives off as it reaches the surface. Environmental campaigners are against the practice, but the Conservatives argue it has the potential to boost the economy. Here's our environment correspondent, Kevin Keane.
It lies deep beneath the rippling waves and is causing alarm to the communities along its banks. But today, the monster was silenced.
And from here right round to Kincardine was all earmarked.
That monster is coal, and this campaigner has fought hard for a ban on the controversial technique to turn it into energy.
This process actually creates huge cavities. That's the only way it works. Nobody knows what's above it, and nobody can convince us how they're going to prevent any of this gas leaching into old mine workings and then eventually find itself to the surface.
The technique involves drilling to the coal seam and injecting oxygen. A combustion is created, causing the gas to rise back to the surface, where it's captured. And Fife is rife for it. The amount mined here at the coalface was only the most accessible, just a small proportion of what actually exists. Little now remains here of the industry that these communities were built on. They once supported tens of thousands of jobs, and some had predicted that gasification would prompt the revival of coal. The techniques might be different to fracking, but the protests covered them all. And today, ministers confirmed what was a first victory for campaigners as UCG was banned.
Economic growth does not come at any price, and we have to take a balanced, proportionate view, listen to the scientific evidence and take a considered opinion. That's what we've done today. This technology, we do not believe, should form part of our energy mix and our energy strategy.
Underground coal gasification is hugely different to fracking. Last week, the first imported shipment of shale gas arrived in Scotland. The Scottish Conservatives say all these technologies have economic potential.
The ban today on UCG is nothing short of environmental NIMBYism. It's very clear the SNP is happy to allow shale gas to be imported for INEOS from Pennsylvania in America. And today, when asked, there was no ban on importing any gas produced from UCG.
For now, one controversial technology is dead in the water, but the bigger battle against fracking here is still being fought. Kevin Keane reporting, Scotland, Fife.
A new report has warned that Scotland could lose between 30,000 and 80,000 jobs as a consequence of leaving the European Union. The report from the Fraser of Allender Institute suggests the relative impact on the rest of the UK could be even greater. The issue dominated questions to the First Minister in the Scottish Parliament. This from our political editor, Brian Taylor.
Scotland trades with the European Union, and that's potentially affected by Brexit, particularly if tariffs replace free exchange. Today's report, commissioned by Holyrood, puts numbers on that. The report tracks the extent to which Scotland disengages from the EU economy. Under the best scenario, with the lowest disengagement, the economy would shrink by at least 2%, shedding 30,000 jobs. Under the worst scenario, the economy would contract by 5%, costing 80,000 jobs. The report says Brexit may have a worse impact on the remainder of the UK. That's because Scotland is less exposed to changes in EU trade.
That therefore, in a sense, insulates Scotland slightly from the shock of leaving Brexit. And that's not surprising when you think about the trade composition of the Scottish economy and the trade composition of the UK economy.
Nicola Sturgeon said the report underlined the need to minimise any disruption caused by Brexit, but she was challenged by Ruth Davidson of the Tories to say what she would do.
My position is also to face up to the realities ahead of us, to mitigate risks and to take advantage of opportunities. And this Parliament now faces a choice about whether to put the lion's share of its efforts into examining practical solutions or simply complaining about the results. So which is it to be, First Minister?
Ms Sturgeon said the Tories brought about Brexit and had a cheek demanding action by others.
Unlike Ruth Davidson, my position hasn't changed. I continue to think that Brexit is a bad idea, and therefore I continue to think it's my responsibility to do everything I can to protect Scotland from it.
These foreign workers are our neighbours and our friends. They are our family.
Willie Rennie of the Liberal Democrats condemned the idea of an audit of foreign workers in the UK, outlined at the Conservative conference. The First Minister offered a suggestion.
To call on the UK Government to stop using human beings as bargaining chips and give them the guaranteed right to stay where they belong, here in Scotland.
Supporters of Brexit say it will open opportunities for other trade. The authors of today's report concede that circumstances may change with the passage of time and under political direction. But as of today, the Scottish take on Brexit is wholly negative. Ryan Taylor, reporting Scotland.
The Auditor General's warning that 2 Scottish health boards are facing prolonged and considerable financial challenges. NHS Tayside needs to make savings of £175 million over the next 5 years, while the bill for the new NHS 24 IT system has soared by 75%. The Auditor General said the difficulties faced by the boards would continue to have an impact on the way they operate and deliver services. The operation to remove the oil rig, the Transocean Winner, which was stranded on the Western Isles 2 months ago, is now well underway. It's been positioned over a heavy lifting vessel in Broad Bay on the east coast of Lewis, and it's now being slowly lifted out of the water. If the operation's successful, the rig will be transported to Turkey for dismantling. From Lewis, Angus MacDonald reports.
The rig started its short journey to the heavy lift ship Hawk early this morning. The same manoeuvre last week had to be abandoned when the heavy swell coming in from the north meant it was too dangerous to try to get the 17,000-ton rig on board. The rig was being nursered along by 4 small tugs. It suffered significant underwater damage when it grounded at Dalmore Beach, and progress had to be slow as it moved around a mile towards the ship. The heavy lift ship was let down into the sea overnight to a depth of 23 metres until only the bow and stern were visible, with 1 large tug at the stern ensuring it remained broadside on to the advancing rig. The rig then had to be pulled by the tugs across the Hawk's deck and held in position. More and more of the rig became visible as the Hawk deballasted to raise the load several metres clear of the sea. The rig is now on the deck of the Hawk, and the Hawk is deballasting to take the whole load out of the water. That'll take some hours, but then will come the work to tie the oil rig firmly to the deck before it's transported away to Turkey. The forecast for the next few days is unusually benign for the northwest of Scotland, and today temperatures reached 18 degrees centigrade as salvage teams watched as the Hawk rose steadily from the waves. Salvors will start perhaps later tonight and certainly tomorrow morning, making sure the rig's securely fastened to the Hawk's deck before the next move, which should take it out of Broad Bay.
If everything still stays on schedule, we'll look at the weather. If it's favourable, we'll simply keep the Hawk here with the rig. We'll start doing the sea fastenings to secure. If the weather does look as if it's going to change, then we may look at taking her around towards Stornoway. But at the moment, the plan will be to keep her here.
Any benefits to island businesses. Over the next few days, the Transocean Winner and the Hawk will be scrutinised closely before the rig resumes its final journey to Turkey. Angus MacDonald, BBC Reporting Scotland, Broad Bay in Lewis.
You're watching BBC Reporting Scotland. It's 18 minutes to 7, a reminder of tonight's top story. The Scots nurse Pauline Cafferkey, who contracted the Ebola virus in West Africa, has been taken to hospital by ambulance under police escort. And still to come, how Sikhs are serving free food in the streets to help the needy and to promote peace. Judges and sheriffs are to be given new guidelines to ensure consistency in the sentences they pass. It's part of a move to improve public confidence in the justice system. Our Home Affairs correspondent, Reval Alderson, reports.
How do sheriffs and judges decide what sentence to pass? There are a number of factors they have to take into consideration.
I will discount the sentence for the reasons I have already indicated, namely the plea of guilty in advance of the trial, the expression of remorse.
But cameras are rarely allowed in Scottish courts, so few people hear the reasons for the sheriff's decision. Even then, like in the case of the death of nurse Jill Peary, victims or their families can feel the judge got it wrong. She was killed by an uninsured driver speeding away from police. The driver, Dylan Jenkin, was jailed for 6 years, which his victim's family called a sick joke. The Scottish Sentencing Council is now working on ways to ensure judges impose a fair and proportionate sentence, particularly in death driving cases, and also to explain to the public how sentences are arrived at.
The range is something which I think people have difficulty in getting to grips with. The blameworthiness can vary hugely from one end of the scale to the other. But of course the impact and effect on members of the public is enormous. And it's an area in which the public has considerable interest, and judges, because of the wide range of offences which can be encompassed, have considerable anxiety about sentencing.
Sentences in wildlife crimes, such as the illegal poisoning of raptors, are also to be studied, although the Sentencing Council says there's no evidence of inconsistency. Victims' groups have welcomed the work of the Sentencing Council as a positive move.
For far too long, victims of crime and also the general public have had very little understanding about what the sentencing decision process is, and that has caused confusion and also potentially a perception of inaccurate practice or inconsistencies in practice across Scotland, and we feel very strongly that this will actually counteract that.
The Sentencing Council hopes its work will make the decisions of courts easier for the public to understand. Revel Alderson reporting, Scotland.
Now, feeding people is a very important part of the Sikh religion, and every temple offers free food to anyone who goes there. This week, Sikhs across the world are taking this principle a step further by serving free food, known as langar, on the streets of their cities and towns. They hope to target those in need and to promote peace. Joanne Macaulay has joined them.
These women at the Gurdwara in Edinburgh meet every week to prepare food for anyone who comes to the temple, regardless of faith or background. And for the past 2 years, they've been making extra portions on a Wednesday to take onto the streets of the capital.
We make chick curry with potatoes and rice, and 1 week make lentils and rice. And we also give like in hot tea, coffee, hot chocolate, sweets, biscuits.
We're here to serve the community free hot food.
The stall with fresh, free vegetarian curry is set up in the centre of Edinburgh, where anyone who's hungry is invited to come and eat. And in this langar week, it's a scene being repeated in many countries.
Some people obviously are busy in their own daily jobs and things like that, so we thought we'd do langar week every year, and that way we can promote as much as we can, and to promote what, we are Sikhs, we're here to help, so whether anyway that's giving out food, giving out water, we're here to help anyone, any way kind possible.
Well, the smell and the taste of the curry is cheering up a rather chilly autumn evening, and many of the people who are eating here tonight see the langar as a very welcome service.
I think it's terrific. It's really very charitable and pretty big-hearted of them.
If it wasn't for themselves, the homeless would be hungry on a Wednesday night.
And even after langar week, the Sikhs in Edinburgh are hoping to increase the amount of free street food they provide. Joanne Macaulay reporting, Scotland, Edinburgh.
A look now at other stories from across the country. The death of a trawlerman who was catapulted overboard while working on deck was entirely foreseeable, according to an official inquiry. The crew member, Anang Nwerte from Ghana, was on the Aquarius off Aberdeen last August when he was thrown from the deck during what marine accident investigators called an unnecessarily hazardous procedure. The long-running legal dispute over the cost of repairs to the runway extension at Sumburgh Airport has been settled. Shetland Islands Council, which was a partner in the project, has agreed to pay around £5.5 million to Highlands and Islands Airports Limited in an out-of-court settlement. Safety checks are being carried out at an Inverness secondary school after a pane of glass fell out of a window and injured a pupil. The boy was taken to Raigmore Hospital after the incident yesterday afternoon. Inverness High School has been closed to S1 to S3 pupils today, while repairs were being carried out. Plans for a £150 million energy from waste plant in Aberdeen have been backed by councillors, despite concerns about the possible environmental impact. The scheme at East Tullis would provide low-cost energy and reduce the amount of waste going to landfill. Lerwick Harbour's busiest cruise season has just come to a close. The final arrival of the year called in at the Shetland capital this morning, bringing the total number of ships to a record 79 and the number of passengers to well over 50,000. A thief has been caught on CCTV stealing a charity bucket from an Edinburgh restaurant. About £90 was taken from Tapa in Leith. At first, the owners thought the bucket had been misplaced, but they checked their CCTV when it failed to turn up 2 weeks later. Police are appealing for witnesses. Now, as Scotland's footballers prepare for their home match in the 2018 World Cup qualifiers, the manager's been telling BBC Scotland how he deals with the stresses of the job. Ahead of the game against Lithuania at Hampden, Gordon Strachan also told us there's a serious purpose to the confrontational way in which he sometimes deals with the media. David Curry reports.
Far from the madding crowd and away from prying eyes, apart from the chap on the bike, the Scotland squad look relaxed at their training camp. So does the manager. However,
there's a stress. I just have to qualify for the World Cup. That's the real stress. What I do to protect myself is to make sure that, and to protect my family, that I'm in a good mood, because it can affect you, and it can affect the people round about me if I feel that we're unjustly treated. That it can affect how I train with the players, how I treat the players, how I treat the staff.
Yet the man in charge admits to being less worried about how he treats his media inquisitors.
It's a battlefield out there. You know, people don't realise that it's usually 32 versus 1, and the 32 are looking for a headline, and I've got to try and protect my players at all times.
After years in the front line, he's adept at deploying the verbal custard pie, cutting a line of questioning dead. Just the other week, he was asked about the resignation of England manager Sam Allardyce.
Well, I really don't think anybody's interested in my 15 seconds of answers.
Another weapon in the armoury is the decoy, throwing the media pack off the scent with a wry observation.
A lot has changed in 2007. Who'd have thought you'd have an iWatch in 2007?
It's a bit of a game, and sometimes you guys win and you get that headline that you want, and it makes me feel terrible for 2 days, or a soundbite or something that makes me feel terrible, or I win and you get nothing, and I just give the information that I think is pertinent for that news conference, and I win. So I hope at the end of the day, as you were speaking earlier, we put our hands up and go, right, that was a good fight, let's get on with it there. We'll see you next week for the next round.
We don't have to wait till next week. The next round is tomorrow, when Mr Strachan takes on reporters in his pre-match conference for the game against Lithuania on Saturday. David Curry, reporting Scotland.
The hit comedy Still Game returns to the small screen tomorrow night. Ford Kiernan and Greg Hempel, who first created the show for the stage at the Edinburgh Festival, say they decided to revive Jack and Victor after the huge success of their live show 2 years ago. Our arts correspondent Pauline McLean reports.
It's 9 years since they were last on screen, but fans can't get enough of Jack and Victor. 100,000 people applied for tickets to see the first episode at a Glasgow cinema.
I think it's just Scottish humour. Everybody gets it. All the good comedy and just everyone getting around and getting together to watch it.
Yeah, we all watch it together and have fun as a family. Wait, you see.
The characters remain 75, but the world around them has changed.
We sort of said, who would have the internet out of all these characters? And we said, well, Isa's was like Google before Google. She would know everything about everybody, you know.
Shut my door! Who is it, please?
But the internet has also given the show an international platform and a massive new following. 2 years ago, they returned to the stage with a sellout run at the Hydro.
Bend your house, guest visiting! What?
They've since announced another live show.
No, we had a good idea from when we wrote it at the Edinburgh Festival all those years ago that there was something that could travel in it, because we took it to
Canada, Dublin.
We took it to Canada and
north of England, all over. Yeah. I think the show and the characters have heart, you know, and people have their favourites and whatnot, and they love Isa and they love Tam's meanness and everything, and maybe they all know somebody like those characters, I guess, you know. But they also love the way that they all interact. And I think we're fans of shows that make you feel good rather than, you know, I don't know, or cynical or whatever. We just like sitcoms that are like Cheers, shows like that you can just lose yourself for half an hour with a bunch of people that you feel like you know.
So we could see a few more series yet. You're going to keep going until you're both 75 yourselves.
No makeup, exactly. We're just going to take all the makeup money and put it straight into our pockets.
Straight out the taxi in the morning, right onto the set. We could even get dressed in the house. We were with stuff.
Pauline McLean, reporting Scotland.
Time now for the latest weather forecast with Kosa.
Thank you, David. Good evening to you all. Well, it's been another beautiful day across the country. You can see from the recent satellite image where we did have some cloud in the morning, melting away to allow much more in the way of sunshine, and the best of the sunshine across the northwest, where temperatures reached 17 Celsius, well above the seasonal average across Aknagart and also Alt Bay in the Northwest Highlands. In fact, making it one of the warmest spots across the whole of the UK. And here's the proof, a glorious picture sent in from one of our weather watchers in Fort William in Highland this afternoon. Now, as we head through to this evening and overnight, it's staying largely dry, but cloud will tend to increase, coming in on fairly fresh southeasterly winds. The cloud mainly across more southern and eastern areas, and maybe thick enough for 1 or 2 showers, most likely across southern parts of the Borders and along the Solway coast. But under the clearer skies across the northwest here, temperatures could dip down to around 3 to 6 Celsius, but widely 8 to 10 degrees. For tomorrow morning then, fairly cloudy to start. Any showers will die away, and then we'll see much more in the way of sunshine developing, especially by the afternoon. And once again, the best of it will be across the northwest of the country. So let's take a closer look at 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. A good deal of sunshine around for Shetland, still quite breezy for Orkney, a bit more in the way of cloud here. And there's a bit of an east-west split across the country. Across the east here, more in the way of cloud, but some sunny spells too. The best of the sunshine further towards the west, and temperatures around 13 to maybe 15 or 16 degrees. Now, high pressure is still dominating our weather across Scandinavia, pushing towards Norway, keeping these Atlantic weather systems at bay. But the wind direction does become more of an easterly as we look to the end of the week and for the weekend, drawing in more in the way of cloud and also the risk of a few showers. So by the time we reach the weekend, there will still be plenty of sunshine, most likely towards the west of the country. Further towards the east, an increased chance of just a few light showers. And for all of us, as we head through to the weekend, it will turn a little cooler. Temperatures back down to average by Sunday. And that's your forecast.
Thanks, Kosa. Now, tonight's main news. In the past half hour, doctors treating the nurse, Pauline Cafferkey, say tests for Ebola have proved negative. She was taken to hospital in Glasgow this morning after becoming unwell. And that's Reporting Scotland. I'll be back with the headlines at 8 and the late bulletin just after the 10 o'clock news. Until then, from everyone on the team, have a very good evening.